over again. Love to be able to do that. So what the elders have shared is that they want the planning of teachers to be done, supported by 4 pillars, that these are the 4 most key important pieces of Indigenous knowledge systems. And those 4 things are storytelling, leadership, land, and healing. I have changed things up a little bit from my non-Indigenous perspective, because every elder I've ever listened to, whether it be the Blackfoot elder, Cree elder, Dene elder, have all given the same message about the importance of language, that language and culture are one. So what I did is took out leadership for right now, not to lose the importance of leadership. And when the elders explain what they mean by leadership, it's very multi-layered, even in terms of your role within your community as a female, or like gender roles at different stages of life. There's so many different layers. So I don't want to lessen the importance of it, but I wanted to add in language. So when I was doing my planning, I included language because it's not something that would be at the forefront of my mind as a non-Indigenous person, but wanted to honor the importance. I also modified healing to incorporate wellness as well. So what I did is I focused in on the math curriculum, first with grade 1 math curriculum. I was a language arts teacher, educator, ELA. So it was a challenge for me to go into the math curriculum and the new curriculum. And I started with the land. Here's my outcome that I was going to address. And I started with the land, and I went to the website called Infusing Indigenous Knowledge into Curriculum, which I'll show you in a minute. I went to that outcome for grade 1 and looked at what the recommendations were from elders for land-based learning experience and for healing and wellness. There's sometimes pieces woven in there as well. Then I thought, okay, authenticity, steering clear of cultural appropriation. This website is completely designed and informed by elders. So storytelling, I thought, I am going to go to Empowering the Spirit, because I know this website was built by and with Indigenous people and educators from across the province. So I went there and I scanned through the stories and the books that were recommended, thought about my own personal stories that I've experienced as well, and wove those into that 1 pillar. And finally, look at your local language, and mine was Cree. I identified some keywords from the lessons and went into some of the apps that I'm going to share with you to pull those keywords and translate them into Cree. And you can also hear the Cree pronunciations as well. Hey, Jody. So this slide basically tells you what I just exactly told you. It's just repetitive of what I did. Sorry, I shouldn't have even had this in here. And I ended up using boards. We had just as consultants gone on to the New Learn Alberta site and learned how to make boards. And I thought, I'm going to make a board, first of all, because I don't know how to do it. So it was good practice to learn, and also to be able to pull all those very rich links and resources into one place. So the next slide, I'm just going to show you the resources. Empowering the Spirit. If you're not, I think we showed it to you last week. We don't need to go there right now, but it's got Orange Shirt Day and beyond. It's got extensive grade level resource recommendations and pedagogical ideas. So I pulled from there. I pulled a lot of ideas and linked them into my board. I do want to show you infusing Indigenous knowledge into the curriculum though. This is the one I'm talking about that was created in conjunction between NRLC and KTCEA. And it is going to cover all of grades 1 to 9 Alberta curriculum when it's finished. If you could scroll right to the bottom, please, Jody. It talks about the prioritized curriculum. Keep going, essential outcomes. And these are the grades. So for example, we can see that it has the new curriculum on grades 1, 2, and 3. And the lady that is inputting all of the information is finished with all of the math and ELA right now for the new curriculum. Maybe just open the grade 2 if you don't mind, please. And you scroll down, you can see that it is structured based on the seasons. Okay, fall, winter, spring, and summer isn't. They're looking at maybe incorporating some summer in there if they can get more to year-round teaching type of thing. If you scroll down, please, there you have the 4 subject areas, and the one I was doing was math. So could I get you to open the math link, please? So this is what it looks like. It's got all of the learning outcomes, and the ones that are in bold are the ones that the elders identified as being essential outcomes, not at the expense of any of the other outcomes, but these are the ones they felt were essential. And then the far right column, Nihiau ways of knowing. These are a compilation of over the last 2 years, all the recommendations that came from elders. And as I said, about 25 elders and about 10-ish other educators from the communities. And these are land-based learning suggestions for meeting those outcomes. Pretty soon, we're going to have all of these done up to grade 9, which is amazing. So when I was planning, I went to the outcome. I came here, got my land-based learning idea. Okay, can we go back, please? And then for the language, for Cree, you can see there's an app for your telephone. It's called KTCEA Elders Speak. I've got it on my phone as well as the online Cree dictionary. And that is where I get the translations for the words that I wanted to include in the board. Okay, that was a mouthful, but I think of anything else, this is amazing. And I've talked to Jason about how do we make this relevant province-wide? And he said in his thinking, and he's a Cree and also Métis, he lives in East Prairie Métis settlement, but was raised traditionally on the land. And if he had his way, he'd take his wife and go live out on the land forever. I told him he should join the TV show Alone, because talk about survival on the land. This man could survive in the bush for like unbelievable what he has to share and offer. I forgot to add, on that website, infusing Indigenous knowledge into the curriculum, in the top right-hand corner, if you go there, there are 4, if you go to the homepage, land-based learning, you can actually see what he looks like. We have included 4 videos, one for each season, and that's Jason. So in the fall, moose calling, we are going to be adding more and more videos onto this website of land-based learning activities. Just wanted to point that out. That's what he looks like. Okay. So that basically is how I went through my process, and we will share the board with you in a few minutes. I did add in Water the Sacred Relationship that Donna shared with us last week, just because I didn't use it when I was creating these, but it's such an amazing resource that I could see weaving some of that in. Absolutely. Okay, Jody. And I think this goes to you now, Jody.
It sure does, because who doesn't want to talk about New Learn Alberta after looking at all your awesome resources? All right. So let's get into the new curriculum part. So New Learn Alberta has a feature called boards. They're intended to be one way that teachers can plan and organize and share lessons and units and assessments. They can be shared for viewing or for collaboration, and we'll talk about how you can do that in a bit. They really, Alberta Ed really is looking for feedback on additional features that teachers would like to see. And in the bottom right-hand corner, anytime you're on New Learn Alberta, you'll see a Contact Us button, and you can use that button to contact Alberta Education directly. They want to know what will make these more useful for teachers. And just to let you know, also, you have to be logged into your New Learn Alberta teacher account to access boards. They're not accessible by just going to New Learn Alberta. You need to request teacher access to do so. So I've just included a few slides in here that I'm going to quickly go through that talks about how to find boards when you go to New Learn Alberta. Please don't worry too much about this right now. We are going to give you time today to experiment with building a board and to go through the steps of this. So I'm just going to show you that there are two different places where if you first go to New Learn Alberta, you'll see a bunch of tiles. There's a tile that looks like this that will take you to boards. Or if you're already in browsing by subject in the curriculum, there's also a spot here. I don't know if you can see my little wiggly arrow there, but there's boards. In this visual, boards is showing as locked. This individual who took this screenshot was not logged in. So if this is showing as locked for you, you need to log in as a teacher. So when you go into boards and you click there, you can pull up different boards. You can search them. This one I searched by weaving and my board came up. It is published, so you can pull up the board that I made. Kim's board that she made is also published, so you can pull up hers. You'll notice that my boards is here. So when I log into my account, the boards that come up on my boards are my own. They're the ones that I've made. I can open them, I can edit them, and I can choose to share them either by publishing them, which will make them visible to everyone who has a New Learn Alberta teacher account, or I can share them just to my colleagues. So you'll notice that this board says that it's my board. It is shared. So before I published it, I shared it to Kim and to Donna to get their feedback. And then I published it when I felt like it was ready to share. There's also a section here that says boards shared with me. So if I'm on a teacher team at a school and I've made a board about something and then one of my colleagues has made a board and we share with each other, I can click on this part here and pull up just boards that have been shared to me that other users have given me access to. And they may have chosen to make it that I can edit their board or not. And finally, there's the ability to just filter by published boards by Alberta Education or boards published by teachers. So just ways to filter out some of the information that you can find in these boards in New Learn Alberta. So if you wanted to create a board, first of all, you need to be logged in. If you're not logged in, you will not be able to do this. And then when you're in the boards section, you would go up here and click on create new board. Go figure. It'll pull up like this. You can enter a title, a board description. This can be a description just for you, or it can be a description if you plan on publishing it to the public. This will come up when people search for your board. You can change the color and the pattern to make it look fancy. And just remember to always click save. It does not auto save. So if you do, like I may have put a lot of stuff into my board and forgot to click save, I lost it all. So you do need to regularly click on that save button before you close it. You can add a subject area, you can add a grade, and that will help filter which learning outcomes you can pull up to add to your board, which we will show you in a little while. And then you can start adding sections. So when Kim and I show you our examples, Kim has created a math board and I've created an ELAL, English Language Arts and Literature board. We've added sections to our boards based on the 4 pillars that Kim identified for us, and then pulled in our own ideas around what we could find for learning outcomes within that grade and resources. You can name these sections whatever works for you. So I've worked with teacher teams that have named these all kinds of things based on different units they're going to study, based on different resources they think they want to use. It's just whatever is going to work for you. Okay, oh, one more thing. So the other things that you can add to your board when you go into a section, you can add a private note. That note is only for the owner of the board. So Learn Alberta cannot see it, Alberta Education cannot see it. Your colleagues also will not see it. So in working with some teachers on these boards, they've said that that's a place where they might reflect on how things went. This lesson was awesome, do it again for sure. Or again, if you're like me, sometimes this was not so great. This is what I would change in the future. If you put content into any of the other places, it will be visible to the people that you share your board with. So just keep that in mind. So when we share out this slide deck, and Kim and Donna, I can't share out right now because I'm sharing my screen, but if you wanted to put a link to the slides in the chat, people would be able to access this. There's a board, of course there's a board on how to use boards. So if you click here in the slide deck, it will take you to that board and guide you through. There's also a really great New Learn Alberta teacher guide that will take you through the board making process. A lot of the slides I've shared here with you in the last couple of minutes have been pulled screenshots from that guide. The board stuff specifically is on pages 31 to 55, but there's also a lot in that teacher guide around customizing print jobs if you want to print just certain parts of the curriculum. So there's actually a lot of handy tips in that guide in general. So when we send you away to experiment with building some boards and using this knowledge, you can always feel free to come back to either the slides I've shared or this New Learn Alberta teacher guide or the board, because why wouldn't you? All right, Kim, you're up. You're muted, buddy.
Darn, I was multitasking. Sorry about that. I'll get you to open up the board, please, so you can see what it looks like. Oh, that's not mine. Where is it? There it is. Okay, so I created some boards for grades 1 to 3, just pulled some outcomes. My intent was to make it as just an example, a sample to show teachers how they could do this. Okay, how they could weave Indigenous ways of knowing into the new curriculum or any curriculum. And I have to let you know that I've done this with grades 1, 2, and 3, all the way up to Physics 30 teachers, and the same thing applies. Physics 30, and I'm saying Physics 30 because there was a teacher that Jason and I worked with last year who loved the whole notion of the moose call and the moose calling. I could do something for kindergarten, it applies as well, but as I said, this is like a template to show you how you can do it. I did get advice from elders and Jason in that bolded piece. Regardless of where you're located, your most valuable resource is local community elders. Please learn as much as you can about local protocols. For example, if using Tiki Pole teachings, medicine wheel, or 7 teachings from resources such as Empowering the Spirit, etc., at some point, you and your students should engage an elder to learn from and deepen your understanding. So I just want to reiterate that. Okay, so the grade 1, just to show you as Jody's scrolling down, the outcome, first one is simple one. Students interpret and explain quantity to 100. Storytelling, I pulled some stories from Empowering the Spirit based on the language activity that I drew from the elder site that I shared with you with KTC. You don't have to go to the books, but there's from the literacy seed kit, there's berries, Niwichahau, about rose hips. I've got some of my own personal stories that I've learned from elders over the years about rose hips that are little kids just love them. Learning stories about how you can get itchy bum and why bears eat so many rose hips, those kinds of things. Then language included Cree vocabulary from the KTC Elder Speak app. Another one that elders have shared with me, the number song. There's a YouTube version of it. That's great. And then the land activity, have students go outside to collect items for counting and comparing, etc. Wellness, teaching students about respect for the earth and stewardship. For example, after they've collected their things, what are you going to do with them afterwards when you're done? Can they collect garbage that they see on their walks? That kind of thing. Okay, if you scroll down, this one I just wanted to show students examine patterns and cycles. Underneath, it says skills and procedures, related cycles of seasons to First Nations, Métis, and Inuit practices. This piece came from the curriculum. Relate cycles of seasons to First Nations. So that's kind of why I pulled this one, and then just incorporate a lot of ideas for storytelling from Empowering the Spirit website. The language included the seasons, the Taguaga and Pipon, spring and summer, and then activities from that website, infusing Indigenous knowledge into curriculum, some seasons recommendations, and then some wellness and healing pieces. I also included an additional resource, the Learning Circle ages 4 to 7. Okay, if you scroll down just a bit, this one, the grade 2, and then I'll stop. This one, I selected the land-based learning activity for explaining geometric attributes of shape to the land-based learning video that Jason did on how to call a moose. And the one that we're going to be putting in there is how to make a moose call, which relates to shape. Okay. So when you get an opportunity, this is published. You can take a look at the other grade 2 and 3 pieces. But I just wanted to show how you can use those 4 pillars to guide your planning. So everything I've pulled here, I would now be ready to start unit planning, lesson planning. I'd be ready to roll, and it's all right there. Okay. Thanks, Jody.
Thank you, Kim. That thing's
Yeah,
awesome.
Jody, before you start, there's a question here from Seema. I don't know if you saw it, Kim or Jody. Seema, your question is?
For kindergarten.
Yeah, something for kindergarten. It says, do you have something for kindergarten? Is that your question?
I think that a lot of what Kim has shared, because the outcomes continue from grade to grade, I think you would find a lot in Kim's resource that would be applicable for kindergarten, would be my guess. Kim, what are you thinking?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And to be honest, this was just a random thing for me to begin with, was grades 1, 2, and 3, because that's where we were focused at the time. But the same process would hold true with kindergarten all the way up to grade 12 with any subject that you're going to teach. So I just focused on 1, 2, and 3 because it happened to be a grade 1 teacher who asked me the question. But the process would be the same. And I have to say, if you teach an older grade, doesn't matter what you're teaching, start with story, begin with story. It's so powerful. Jason every day began with story with all of us, elders, older people. And it just was such a good way to begin with the stories. So there. So yes, kindergarten, the whole process would be the same.
Great. So just in our slide deck again, the link to Kim's board, or where to find Kim's board, is embedded here. The link to my board, this is the title slide from my board. And we'll have a look at it right now. So I followed Kim's example and on mine, I just did grade 1. So this is an ELAL grade 1 board. Again, following up on what Kim said, this could be, I believe that a lot of these resources could be applied to the earlier or later grades. So I've tagged this as a K-2 board. And I copied Kim's reminder that we should be leaning into local community elders whenever we can and reaching out to build those relationships. So what I've got, the way that I did mine was I put my board sections are storytelling, language, land, and wellness. And then I pulled under storytelling, whichever outcomes I felt leaned into storytelling. So it speaks about sharing stories in this learning outcome. It talks about how messages can be organized and presented for different purposes and investigating meaning and communicated in texts. So to me, these outcomes really spoke to storytelling in general, and kind of looking at it through that two-eyed seeing approach. As an English language arts teacher, I value stories in a certain way, and then trying to build on that other way of seeing to see the importance of storytelling also in First Nations, Métis, and Inuit perspectives. And then the next thing that I added in here were online resources that are on New Learn Alberta. So I've tagged in here Walking Together and a lot of different pieces of Walking Together. This is a resource that is linked on New Learn Alberta for us to use. There are pieces in here talking about oral traditions, protocols around talking circles, and oral traditions for sharing a story. So when I built my board, I just looked for resources that would lean into that storytelling tradition. There are also some information pieces. So when we see resources that are tagged as online resources, we can go into this resource and actually look at it if we're logged in as a teacher. So if we click on it, it will take me all the way to that resource. If it says information only, I'm going to have to dig my way back into the right tag now. Where am I? Is this mine? There we go. If it says information only, this is a suggested story, but it does not have a copy of the story online. So these are some ideas for stories that New Learn Alberta has included in their curriculum website, but you would have to go and seek out that story for yourself. And then there are also these mathology books. And for me, when I saw these, I was like, oh, these are great little stories, even though they're tagged as mathology. And then I had a question for Kim and Donna today around, are these good stories to use? Is this a great story that I should be sharing with people? Because they are embedded in the New Learn Alberta website. And I was curious as to whether or not this author and this story were ones that we should feel comfortable using. And what was the answer? Donna and Kim?
Absolutely. They're great resources. And I believe they're by Pearson, and they've been around as a series and a set for a few years now. And we really highly recommend them. So
yeah, so I double checked with my local expert in Donna, and I was like, these are on here. Are these good ones? And she said, yeah, for sure. And you'll notice that this is an unlocked online resource. Again, that's because I'm logged in right now in my teacher account. So under my storytelling section here, I have a whole bunch of different things linked. Donna, did you want to say something?
there was a question on the chat box, and I don't know if you answered it, Kim, but the question was, I'm sorry, I had a meeting, I had to join late. Do we have a link to both of your ladies' boards, or will we have it after the meeting? That's the question.
Okay, I just answered it underneath. So the slide deck is there and given
Great.
some others. Okay.
Yeah, there should be links in the slide decks that will take you to boards, and both Kim's and my board are published on New Learn Alberta. So you can look for them in the boards section and they will be there. And then I also added, so these purple bars are lesson notes, and they're not private lesson notes. So when I built this, I linked in just a couple of websites here around Kim's resource, Infusing Indigenous Knowledge. That website is here. Learn Alberta website is here for lesson plan examples. A link to evaluating resources for Indigenous pedagogy, and then some Learn and Go resources from ARPDC are also linked here around some of this content. So, and I also pulled out parts of the outcomes. So there's knowledge, understanding, and skills and processes under our learning outcomes, as I'm sure all of you know, because you've been teaching this new curriculum now for a few weeks. And these are the parts that I thought really spoke to Indigenous ways of knowing. So the ideas that stories are shared through listening and speaking, oral traditions can be handed down from generation to generation. Kinship involves belonging and relationship. and oral stories are highly valued in many communities, and there are special protocols about how, when, and with whom stories can be shared. So I just pulled some of these key pieces out and added a lesson note for us to see. So that's the whole storytelling section. And then I added a second section on language, pulled out some language-based learning outcomes. Again, found some pieces of resources that I could embed in here from those Mathology Little books and some other lessons, and then copied from Kim because she is a great resource around the language and how sound functions in language, which speaks directly to the outcomes for English language arts in this section. Donna, did your hand go up and then go down?
Yeah, as you're talking, all these things are coming to mind. You know, there is a Blackfoot online dictionary as well, and I'll have to link it into the chat box. But my question to you was, I believe it was around resources, and then I was just going to open it to whoever had anything that came to mind. If you'd like to pop at the chat box, you're more than welcome to unmute yourself and ask questions as well. If you have anything that's come to mind or you're unsure about, or better yet, maybe some of you have already built boards and are looking to share some of your ideas. So I'll stop talking for a moment there and let you answer if you can. And that's to anybody. Yeah.
So can I ask a question, Jody?
Absolutely.
As you're building these boards within Learn Alberta, essentially you're just linking information that could be from anywhere, but it's like a portal to getting to it. And so then each board, if we're creating it for the purpose of infusing Indigenous ways of knowing, we want to make sure we're hitting each of those 4 pillars in the information we attach. Now, here at our school, because I didn't know boards existed, what we have done is created like access through our Google Slides, where there are lesson plans that have either been vetted through Empowering the Spirit or through Lethbridge has a database. So those are the kinds of things I could link into my boards so that staff could have a one-stop shop to find it.
Exactly. And then since you've done all of that work and it's obviously awesome, you have the power to also publish your board. So if you title it with something that is easily searchable for other teachers in the province, they'll be able to find that and be like, oh yeah, that connects to that too. So it's really meant to be a collection of resources so that teachers aren't reinventing the wheel all the time, but really a place where we can all find resources that will help us all out as we work through new curriculum. And we're using it here for Indigenous ways of knowing, but you could build a board around anything. So if you have great math manipulatives for grade 1, plug it all in there, put all your links in there to all those sites that you can find different things, and away you go. So it really is intended to be a tool that can be used for planning and sharing. In my experience with doing sessions with teachers, it's either a way where teachers can really see it coming together and working well, or they're like, it's too much clicking and I don't understand how it works. And to me, as a teacher, either perspective is fine because we already have ways that we plan and share. The potential for this one to be able to share it outside of your school, I think is pretty cool. And to be able to take ideas from people outside of your school, I think is pretty awesome. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. And then I can search boards. So there's a function in there. And if you already walked us through that, I'm sorry, because I missed it. But if I wanted to search a specific kind of board, how would I go about that?
You bet. So I'm back here. Hopefully I'm back to New Learn Alberta. I've clicked on the section that is boards. I can search for by grade level. So what grade do you teach? Are you kinder? 1?
Great.
I can see your finger. Grade 1. Okay, so I clicked grade 1 and already it's weeding out just grade 1 boards. Then if I want boards published by teachers, I click on that and it's going to start weeding out which boards can be included. Or I can unselect that and I can go, okay, I only want grade 1 and I only want math. So we've got something by my colleague Wanda, we've got Kim Barker K's one and a couple of other ARPDC ones. You can also search by a key term. So if I wanted to go in here and type in Indigenous, I'm going to get 3 results. So it just pulled up my first attempt at a board, my pretty published one, and then Kim's one. But this search feature here is handy. I'm pointing to it on my screen as though you can all see it. This, this search feature can be handy in something like math. So if I need a math board just on a certain topic, especially as more and more teachers publish their resources, we can really support each other in the how of teaching some of these things.
Any
There's
other
also,
questions?
sorry, I was just going to say there's also what I did when I first created my board is on the home page. There is a search location where you can search the grade, you can search the curricular outcomes and by grade and by subject. And that really helps to refine your work. And I did learn that when I was doing this, I have not within the curriculum found the word Indigenous in there very much, but there is First Nations, Métis, and Inuit is in there.
So I can just show you. That's a good reminder, Kim.
Yeah.
So if I go up anywhere in New Learn Alberta, if I go up to the top here, and hopefully you can see my little finger swirling around the magnifying glass, and if I type in First Nations, it will search the available outcomes and subjects and guiding questions everywhere. Then I can narrow it down and say, okay, I only want grade 1. I can also narrow it down and say, okay, I only want ELAL. And I've got 50 results for First Nations within that curriculum. And I can say I only want curriculum, or I only want boards, or I only want resources. So there are quite a few little bits and pieces of New Learn Alberta that can be useful in manipulating some of this content to make it easily accessible. Good reminder. Thanks, Kim.
Yeah.
And then this is pulling up resources. So again, some of these stories or these mathology little books, if I see mathology, I know that it's going to pop up a book that I have access to online. So I can just pull it up and then click on view resource, and it's going to come up for me. Great questions, guys. Does anyone else have a question that we can answer for you? Because the next thing is you're going to do them.
I do have another question if no one else has one. Do we
Yeah.
have to be careful about when we're adding things to these boards about things like copyright and things like that?
So I would link anything in here that you would normally use in your classroom. If you are worried, I would link it in a private note, but just keep in mind that that's only going to be viewable by you. Otherwise, most of the resources I've linked in my boards so far are public resources. So I would think carefully about scanning in anything and linking that way. I would say that normal copyright rules would apply.
So Jody and maybe Kim, just a reflective question here. Resources are really open, and you can almost pick and choose anything to put within these boards. And so that's kind of the it's a great opportunity for you to explore a lot of resources, but at the same time, I guess use your best professional judgment to find some really authentic resources, ones that you've already used and ones that we've shared in the last webinar. And we'll continually add resources for you to use as well. But really, you should use those anchor, resources like Walking Together and a lot of our great resources that we've created throughout the years on empowering the spirit. And then, of course, Pearson and Nelson and Scholastic, they've got some great resources out there. And just continue to use what you have been using.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure. And I I was happy to see that Walking Together was linked within New Learn Alberta as an approved or linked resource to start looking for ways of sharing a story. So if I click on it, I can go and it takes me straight to the resource that you guys have worked on. So pretty cool.
Lovely, lovely comments by Dawn, or sorry, not Dawn, Christine. Thank you. They are amazing. And I think, you know, if you have the opportunity to do some exploration, and I guess that's the next part of what we're going to do is allow you some work time.
So we have about 20 minutes left this evening, and our intention now, unless one of my colleagues wants to jump in, is to let you go to New Learn Alberta on your own computer. So you can minimize your Zoom screen and go to New Learn Alberta right now and log in and see if you can create a board on your own. And we're here for support. And we can suggest some resources that you might want to link. We can suggest a format for your board if you would like. But we wanted to give you a chance to have access to particularly Donna and Kim about what might work to embed those resources within a board and start linking some of those new curriculum outcomes to these ways of knowing. So I'm going to be quiet. And I'm going to hope that everyone is minimizing their Zoom screen and heading into New Learn Alberta. You've got a copy of the slide deck, so please feel free to go in there and look. I just muted my own self. Look for those slides that show you where to go to create a board and start playing around with them. But I think also our intent is that you play with boards and experiment with them, but we don't want them to be a barrier to you doing this work. So there are definitely other ways to plan. We've all been planning since before New Learn Alberta existed. And so if you have a way to start tying together some of those new curriculum outcomes with the things that you've learned from Donna and from Kim and some of those resources, then by all means, if you're a pen and paper person like I am normally, do it that way. But I'm going to stop talking. Get to work, everybody. This is where we'd be walking around the classroom, peering over your shoulders.
I was going to suggest that maybe we can reconvene at 5:25 for a closing and look towards next week. Okay, so please do look at New Learn Alberta, or you can go into the slide deck that was shared with you and start opening some of those links. Okay, and I'll be quiet too.
Jody,
Hello.
so if I find, so I'm in my board and I'm creating things,
Okay.
but when you go to add resources, it is only allowing you to add resources that are already on New Learn Alberta.
Yep.
So is there a way to, if I found something, to link that in?
So what I did was I added a lesson note. So if you see the purple, you'll see that there's lesson note, private note, learning outcomes, and resources if you're in a section.
Okay.
Does that make sense, Kevin?
Yeah.
So if you add a lesson note,
Okay.
it will give you the option to insert text. And then
Okay.
there's a button there to make it into a link.
Yeah,
So if you're linking websites, that's where you would do it.
okay. So then the resources that are already here are things that are approved by Alberta Ed.
They're suggestions. Yeah, I wouldn't say so much. Well, they're obviously approved because they're on their website. But
Mhm.
basically what we were told in our sessions with Alberta Education was that any resource, a teacher is free to approve any resource as long as they feel it meets one learning outcome.
Okay,
So whatever you've got access to in your classroom, your school, your district, or locally, as long as you feel it meets a learning outcome, go ahead and link it in there.
okay. Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome. I have some really groovy backlighting developing as the sun kind of moves around towards where my window is. Kind of angelic, maybe kind of like ascending to somewhere. I don't know. It's creepy.
I have to say, you're very angelic all the time, Jody. But ladies, I forgot to hit record till about 4:40 or something like that. I totally forgot to record. So people are going to be looking for a recorded. So just for your a heads up, it's going to be about an hour. But you know,
I'm
we
gr-
got to the most important parts, right? So
I'm grateful that you remembered because I always forget.
I completely forgot. And then the notification came up and I was like, oh, thank God somebody remembered to hit the button because I didn't.
yeah, that was me. So
I'm wondering, there are a few people who had to leave early. I'm wondering, Donna, if your
Oh.
person who sends things out could send a little, this is your homework assignment.
yes, absolutely, we can do that. And you know, I don't know, well, you know, but we'll send a few more links and stuff out with the recording, but it should all go up tomorrow on that slide deck. But I think you already shared the slide deck. Is that what I understand? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep, but we can share it again
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
the email.
yeah.
Quite a few people didn't make it tonight, so.
Oh, okay.
You know, I get it. It's just a busy time and the day after
Oh,
day.
man.
Yep. But the people who were here were the people that were intended to be here. That's awesome.
I agree, yeah. Well, and the plan is, you know, for next week when we come back to share our boards, are we going to create at least one more board? Do you ladies want to do that, or how can we share even more?
You know, I'm thinking that it would be neat to even just amongst the three of us, or somehow if we just had one more. I was thinking when we were in Red Deer, one of the questions that I got from quite a few people was, I think it's in the kindergarten curriculum. First, it might be in other pieces, is how to read the land,
Oh, okay.
which would be kind of a neat thing to have in there as well. I
That's a
know
good
one of my things on the board, it's not the outcome, but that is one of the pieces in there. I think it's for my grade 3 level. I can't remember, but was on reading the land. And there's a
Yep.
wonderful resource suggested by elders on what's it called? Cree Hunters of Mistacynate, and by National Film Board in 1972. And a lot on reading the land for signs for trap lines and where to build your winter camp. That kind of thing was neat, kind of cool. Might be something to think about.
Yeah, I like that idea. There's so many great resources that we can connect to it, like storybooks, of course, but there's one titled 13 Moons on Turtle's Back.
Mhm.
That one is, you know, I mean, there's a variety of poetry and different types of text in it, but it really is alluding
That would
to,
be awesome.
yeah, learning from land and learning about land through
So
land.
this is just in my board, and I didn't go all the way down to here, but this idea that students can examine ways that messages can be organized and presented. Messages can be shared in a variety of forms, including land. So this is the excerpt from, I think
Yeah.
it's the knowledge section of that one. And
Yeah.
environmental print includes signs, symbols, and words. And then I just started pulling learning from the land resources from Cass. And then some pieces from Workland School of Education here at U of C, and some recordings from our local area. And this would be a great place for us to bring in some of your stuff too, Kim.
Mhm.
But I just connected in some writing on stone, the Nose Hill Sun Wheel, and there were different elders speaking to these stories. And then a link to the website for Blackfoot Crossing.
Nice. Is this a board that you have already?
It's the same board. Yeah, it's just
Oh.
scrolling down on that same grade 1 one.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah,
Just
so,
goes
but
on. The great
know,
resource.
right?
It's
Nice.
a great board. Yeah, good
but
for
we
you, Jody.
could, no, well, I think we could almost make a board just on land as text, though, because that is such a common question that we're getting in our sessions on new curriculum. People are coming up against that one going,
How do
what?
you read land?
Yeah. So but I think that once again, it's been one of those aha moments for me, and again, talking about that 2 lensed glasses and trying to keep tweaking that one lens to clarify what things could mean. Learning from you guys and learning from Charity and Foothills and a couple of different other people who work in our area around how we can embrace that opportunity. Right. And how we can, but then assessing that as well. Right. So are kids reading land at grade level? How do we start to look at that piece? Might be interesting as well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's a interesting conversation that Jason and I have had over the years, is children who have grown up in the north or in a rural area are so used to certain experiences that perhaps a urban child is
Yep.
not. Like
Absolutely.
even the one we did on plucking geese and ducks, we knew that there was going to be some teachers having concern about the age level. And he said, you know, where I live, kids when they're 5, 6 are out there, or 4 even, are
Mhm.
out there plucking and learning. So
Well, and the idea of being on a farm too, right? Like in Alberta, one of the places where we were talking about the idea of reading the land and responding to seasons, we had a bunch of farm wives, and they were in the room and they're like, yeah, how are you going to properly farm if you don't pay attention to what's happening with weather and what's happening with land? And I was like, yeah, you know what? That's an interesting way of looking at it in a Western perspective. So like through that one lens,
mhm.
but then also it would overlap and kind of bring an understanding to the Indigenous way of looking at the world too. So, but yeah, like city kids, I mean, whether or not you need to wear a jacket that day.
No,
And I am a city kid.
And I have to say, you know, there's so many teachings around, you know, sky science, like the constellation
Mhm.
storytelling and, you know, that kind of thing. And so there's just so many great resources out there that are all connected, you know, as we say, it's
Yep.
all interconnectedness. But yeah, there's some great pieces out there that we could certainly add. But I like the idea, Kim, that maybe we come back with one that we can create and share as a published version for all of our participants.
I'm excited to see what our participants create.
I am
Hmm.
too. Very, very interested, which is awesome. Yeah. Well, after this is done, maybe if you don't mind, we can stay on and set a date because we're going to need
Yeah.
to obviously get together again.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Before.
Tonight, I don't have to bring Bridget to a band introduction, head start, whatever, so I have time.
I
Last
can-
week, it was vital that we learned the clarinet.
Oh,
Oh no, Karen.
Aaron's not a teacher. Okay.
So you don't have a teacher access to New Learn Alberta?
oh, maybe a student teacher, right? Or
Karen, are you a student teacher? No, an EA. Okay. So yeah, I don't have any tips and tricks on how to get into a board in New Learn Alberta for you, unless you wanted to ask one of the teachers that you work with to let you explore some of the resources that are on there. But luckily, a lot of the resources are also linked in the slide deck, and incredible resources around and really fully thought out and well-developed resources. Yeah, amazing. Definitely have a look at the resources that are embedded in that slide deck because they're just unbelievable.
And that's
But
the
yeah,
thing.
EA access, that's tricky.
Yeah. And that's the thing is there's no need to create things. There's just so much
Oh yeah.
stuff that's already created. And that was my whole thinking was how can we start using or not start, but use what's already there and that we know is authentic and respectful. So let's use it.
Mhm. Well, that would be great, Karen, if you could, work with your teacher,
Mm.
access some of the parts and pieces to, build a board together. What a great idea. Yeah.
So I'm thinking, Jody, if ever it's 5:25, so if everyone's back, we can go back to that slide piece. I hope everyone found it helpful to have some time to just browse around a little bit. Gives you a beginning to get in there.
So
Okay,
there is a link in the slide deck to Jamboard. You don't need to do this at all, but it's just a way for us to gather some feedback on whether or not boards are working for you. My priority for you would be to spend time playing with the boards a little bit more before we worry about giving feedback, but it's there if you'd like to say these are great or I need support with this, then please feel free to use that link. And Kim, I'm going to hand this to you.
Okay, so you all have homework and you have a choice. You can either create a board for your grade level and just pick a subject area that weaves together the curriculum, the resources, and Indigenous ways of knowing and being based on everything that Donna and Jody and I have shared with you over these 2 days. Or if you're not comfortable with boards and you would like to do a lesson plan instead, using learning outcomes from your grade, find resources, build connections, and write a lesson plan using the template provided, or use your own way, whatever works for you. I did tack on a sample lesson plan here that you can access. It's a bit modified. It comes from the Infusing Indigenous Knowledge website. If you could just open it for a minute, please.
Yep.
And it's not as pretty as it is on the website, but maybe we could pretty it up. LBL means a land-based learning video, and we incorporated the 4 pillars there. And this is what KTCEA is using for their planning. And instead of Cree terms, we put Indigenous terms. And Donna mentioned there is a Blackfoot online dictionary. So you can certainly use this if you prefer. So
This is
you have
great.
homework for next week. And our plan is to do a big sharing next week of everybody's work. And we'll probably share a few more little tidbits with you as well. Anything?
And please, yeah, I just wanted to interject. The prospect of sharing your work sometimes feels daunting to people, but please know that as I shared in the first session, I'm a seed when we talk about being a seed and a sprout and a tree in this work. I am a seed. I'm learning more every time. And we all come to this just with a desire to do things as well as we can. So just whatever you have done, please bring however it went for you, and we will go from there.
And I do need to share that if you are feeling uncomfortable with the sharing, in the work that I've been doing the last few years with Jason and sharing with across the province, across grade levels, the big piece that sticks out in my mind, listening to teachers, is hearing the curriculum connections that other teachers have made in other grades and other subjects. Like even Jason sometimes sitting there, he goes, I never thought of that before. Like another teacher will have this brilliant idea and he goes, I love that. Never even occurred to me. So that's the really big value piece here. Donna, did you have anything you'd like to close with or share?
No, just go and explore. And really that's, you know, the best advice that we can give you all is just to go and take the time to look through some of the resources and then start building and creating your board or lesson plans. I did include the Glenbow, which is the museum here in Calgary. They've got a Blackfoot teacher toolkit, and it's actually, there's some great resources at the Glenbow to begin with. So that hopefully will help some of you. And I do have an app for a Blackfoot dictionary. I'm going to have to search it, but that was the one I had at my fingertips. But yeah, take a look at the resources, and there are some wonderful pieces out there for you to use. Look forward to next week. We'll see you all again next Tuesday at 4 o'clock, the 18th.
It's the 18th. It's the Tuesday.
Oh, you're right. It is the 18th. I put the wrong date in there.
Well spotted.
Good catch. Good catch.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
Do you want to stop our recording, Donna?